All right, good morning, everybody. I am just getting set up here for the class and waiting for just one more minute. I'm going to share this out to a couple of different places. So bear with me while I do that. Whoa!
I am just getting set up here.
All right, there we go. I forgot my own rule, which is to turn off the volume. So that should take care of that. Right, so just give me a second. I'm going to share this out to a couple of different places and then we will get started. All right, good morning and welcome to Open Studio live on YouTube. My name is Diane. I'm the host and instructor at thetowelwire.com, which is an online learning platform for making wire jewelry. And what I do is help you to explore your creativity through making wire jewelry. So this is a feature in my membership group that I host for people in the paid group. And Open Studio is where we get together and explore whatever projects we're working on. And recently what we've been doing is taking a design prompt and working with that. So the project that we're going to be working on today came out of a recent session there where the design prompt was rectangles. And so I created a couple of different pieces, and this one in particular I thought was really good for helping you to build your skills working with square wire. So before we get started, I'm just going to do a couple of clarifications. What I do is I do a demonstration of the project. I'm going to ask you to, if you've got questions, hold off on them until a little bit later on, because I'm not going to be checking the live feed for comments right away. And if you are new to the channel and have not subscribed yet, please hit subscribe and click on the little notification bell so that you get notifications about when I am posting new material and new videos. So first of all, let me show you the project that we're going to be working on today. I'll switch over my camera and let's get this focused. Not great, but okay, there we go. I will lift this up. All right, so here is the project, and so it's a very pretty little chain link that you can make in a variety of different sizes, and it has a little bit of binding on the middle of it to add extra security. And so once you've got this finished, you can use this in a variety of different ways. You can use it as a chain link for a bracelet or a necklace like what I'm doing here, and also for earrings. I have been wearing the earrings that oops, hang on, stop. Yeah. I've been wearing the earrings that I made for this for a couple of days now. I don't know if you can see them here. And so next, let's go through what the tools and materials are. Now, this is the first time I'm doing this live on YouTube. I have been teaching live classes at the Tower of Wire for about 3 years. So we'll see how this goes. This is a new thing for me, so bear with me as I'm flipping back and forth, and we'll see how it works. All right, so tools and materials. Let me just share my screen again. The tools you're gonna need for today are the flat nose pliers, your chain nose pliers, your round nose pliers, flush cutters, a permanent marker, a ruler, a jeweler's file. You'll need optional is a rouge cloth if you want to clean and straighten your wire without your fingers. And you will also make use of a nylon job pliers, but that's again optional. The materials you're going to need for this project are 7 inches, 18 centimeters of 20 gauge, 0.80 millimeters soft square wire. That's per link. So for an 18-inch chain, a 46 centimeter chain, you'll need about 12 links. And for each of the links, you will also need about 2 inches, 5 centimeters of 20 gauge, 0.8 millimeter soft half round wire. And then you'll need to choose some sort of connector. And I am going to be using 3 millimeter outside diameter jump rings that I made out of 20 gauge, 0.8 millimeter soft round wire. All right, so there we go. Right, so the first thing you're going to need to do is to clean and straighten your square wire. So I will flip my screen again. And there we go, move this out of the way. So what I have here is the square wire. And one thing I'm going to say about this is I'm using soft wire today, but you can use half hard wire. You can use hard wire. There's going to be a little bit of spring back with each of those. And I'll point out when we get to that point what you need to look out for. So the first thing we're going to be doing is straightening the wire. I'm using the nylon jaw pliers here. And then cut your wire. You want 7 inches. So I'm going to cut a couple of these pieces to start. Oops. Now this is a project that benefits from having very straight wire. So the straighter you can make it, the better your results will be. So that's one of the reasons why I'm using the nylon jaw pliers. And this piece of wire has a twist in it that is not going to come out. So I am going to cut that off and put that piece aside. You do need to watch, because depending on how this comes off your roll or your coil, it might have a twist in it when you're first starting. And the other thing you can do is just to clean and straighten your wire is just to use what I call the piece method. And that is use your 2 fingers and the edge of your thumb here and glide it along the wire to help straighten it out. But because I want very, very smooth wire, I'm going to use the nylon jaw pliers. All right, I'm going to make one more. All right. Oh. So now that we've got these 3 pieces, we want to make sure that they are nice and straight. So take your time with this. And a lot of the time what I will do is start in small sections. So I'll start at the top and work my way down. Make sure that that little bit is straight and then that little bit is straight, and then flip it over so that I'm working on the end and straighten this out a little bit. So the goal is to get it as straight as you can possibly get it. All right, there's number 2. And there is number 3. So let me get some of my tools on the table here. All right, so the next step is going to be to figure out where your midpoint is with your wire here. So set your ruler down, put these aside. And so we're doing 7 inches here. Let me move that down. 7 inches here. So the midpoint of that is going to be 3.5 inches. And if you're doing this in metric, then it's about 18 centimeters. So your midpoint is going to be about 9 centimeters. So I've got this not quite at the beginning and the end so that it helps it because it's not exact. This is, if I'm doing it exactly, it is 17.7 millimeters that I've got here. So just eyeball this a little bit if you're doing it in metric and find your midpoint. I'm going to do it in imperial today. So once you know where your midpoint is here, then mark 1 inch on either side of that midpoint. So mark at 3 inches and at 4 inches. And do that on each one of the pieces. Okay, 3 inches and 4 inches. There we go. All right, so we've got all of those. Now, grab your flat nose pliers and your chain nose pliers and grab one of the marks with your chain nose pliers like this. And then grab the other mark with your flat nose pliers. And what you want to do is make sure that your pliers are positioned like this. Because what you're going to do next is twist these two. And you're going to have to reposition them a couple of times and twist them a couple of times. And you can do this as often as you want. The goal here is to get a nice piece of twisted wire in the middle. There we go. All right. So there you see. And then if you have got a kink or anything in here, then take a minute to straighten out your wire again, because it needs to be straight before you continue on. So let me do that with the other 2 pieces that we've got here, and then we'll keep going. All right, I'm actually going to switch cameras here. So, because this is kind of tough to do. This is kind of tough to do on just a, hang on a second, let me adjust there. This on underneath of the camera here. So if you're doing this sitting up, and I like to work with the pliers sitting up in front of me here like this, because it's so much easier to see and you've got better control over it. So what you're going to do is take your pliers more or less like this and twist them around. And twist it again. Now I usually go around about 3 times. And then there you have it again. Okay, so let me come back down over here. There we go. Okay, so you can see how that one bent a little bit more. So I'm going to take the time to straighten it out. And turn this in your fingers as well, because that'll help you to see where else you need to straighten it out. All right, so let's do this last one again. Okay. Setting the pliers here and twist. Oops. Twist. And get the repositioned. And I'm going to go one more time here. There, up. And there. All right, so there we go. Okay, so those are the 3 pieces there. Yeah. All right, let me just check over to see if there are any questions going on here. All right. So the next step here is to start making the chain link. So put these 2 aside and switch over to using your chain nose pliers. Now, line your chain nose pliers up at the end of one of the pieces of, here, hold on, let me see if I can get this clearer. All right, whoops. How's that doing? Okay, so you're going to line up your chain nose pliers at one end of your twisted wire and get your thumb in right next to the pliers here and make a bend, about a 90-degree bend. You can go slightly over that and then switch to the other side. And make sure that this is still in the same plane. This is where you can use your tabletop and make sure that this wire is perpendicular to your tabletop. That'll help you to keep your orientation. And set your pliers here again at the end of the twisted wire and make another 90-degree bend. Now the goal here is when you look at it from the side that it's relatively flat, and if it isn't, then you can take the time now to straighten it out so that when you put it down on the table, it's sitting flat. So once you've got that, then take your pliers again and now move them a little bit away from the corner that you made here, because you have to give some space for the tips of your pliers when you're continuing on with your bend. And so then you can continue making this bend so that these 2 end up being parallel with each other. So you go most of the way, and then you can come back here and squeeze at the very top to bring these 2 strands together, and then come back over here and do the exact same thing. You have to make room for your pliers. And then you can squeeze up here and bring those together. Now, what you should do at this point is just check to make sure that your wire is still on the square all the way up here, because sometimes at this point, you may notice that it's starting to tip. And by being on the square, that means that when you're looking at it, you see the flat edges. You don't see a corner here. And you can just take that into the light and flick it back and forth in the light, and you'll be able to see right away whether or not it has gone off square. And I think we're looking okay right here. So we can keep going with that. So next, turn the piece so that it's lying like this, and then set your pliers, the chain nose pliers, into this little pocket here. There's a tiny little pocket that you've made where the curve here and your strand come together. So set the pliers into that little pocket, and then apply pressure with your finger against the wire and against the pliers, and make a 90-degree bend like that. And then flip this around and reposition your pliers again so that it fits really nicely into the corner that you've made here. And then set your finger against the wire and apply pressure right against the pliers and make another 90-degree bend. Now this one might be a little bit more rounded than the first one you did, so you can come back in with your pliers and squeeze a little bit to make that corner a little bit sharper. And then hold the piece with your thumb and your finger here, and then use your pliers to squeeze this very gently right here. So across this spot. You don't want to do it right on the end because that's going to actually crush the end. You want it to stay relatively square. But if you go a little bit further in, then what that does is helps these two strands come together more parallel. Right, so come back over to this point now and do the exact same thing again. Set your pliers into the pocket. Make a 90-degree bend. And then turn your piece. Set your pliers back into this corner. Apply pressure right at where the wire and the pliers meet. Make another 90-degree bend. Now this one, you'll see, has bent a little bit upwards. So take a second to straighten it out. Okay, so that when you're looking at it from the side, you see straight. And then come back in here and give it a little bit of a squeeze. And there you go. So this still needs to be squeezed a little bit more because that's not quite where I want it to be. Now, if you're having trouble and you don't want these things to be sticking out like this, what you can do is take your wire and just pull it a little bit. Because this is soft wire, it's going to move very, very easily. So it's just a really gentle adjustment. Here. All right. And then check it again to make sure that everything is on the square still. And then from here, again, you're going to come back into this pocket. And you're not actually going to put your pliers into this pocket this time. You're going to take it and move it out just a little bit. And let me see how close I can get here. All right. I will get here. Let me adjust the focus a little bit so that this is a little bit clearer. What you actually want to do here is line up this edge of your pliers with the top edge of your chain link here. What you need to do with this is make a little bit of room for your pliers for the next bend. And what we're going to do is just bend this slightly like this. And you're also going to have to apply a bit of pressure with your thumb and your finger right there. And so what you see is that your pliers get stuck there. And once it gets stuck, we have to move them out of the way again and continue the bend, because it's just enough to get you started, but then you use your fingers to continue making that bend. And one of the things you'll notice here is that it ends up also creating a bit of a gap with your wire here. So you have to come back over here and give it a bit of a squeeze again to straighten it out. And the other thing you can do is take your pliers and go across all of the wires here and adjust this, because ideally you want this to be as close and parallel as you can get it. All right, so let's try that again over here. So you are setting it into the pocket, but then moving it back so that you can make some space for your pliers. Start making your bend, and fairly quickly you're going to see that it touches. And then move your pliers out of the way, make a bend again. Come back over here, put your pliers across all of your wires to keep them all together and nice and flat, and then bend this down. And then you'll notice that it's come out of parallel here a little bit, so you can come back in here and squeeze it again. Make a little bit more of an adjustment. All right, so almost there, almost there. So I'm going to put this back down here and refocus the camera. All right, so now you're going to need your ruler again. Now what you want to do is set this back down on your ruler. That needs some more adjusting here. Hold on. Okay. So go back to your original 1 inch here, and then measure and mark the midpoint here. You're going across all of them with your marker. And then the next thing you'll want to do is to cut off the end here. So find your wire nippers. And now I do this part of it in metric. So from what you're going to do is line this up with the outside edge of the chain link here, and measure and cut off 1 centimeter. And then flip it around, do the same thing on the other side. Line it up. And then that one is actually already at 1 centimeter, so there's not much to cut off there. And then you will want to take the jeweler's file and file your ends. All right. So from here, switch over to your round nose pliers and measure, oops, hang on. Get that. Measure down from the tips of your pliers between 3 and 5 millimeters and put a piece of masking tape there or mark it with your marker. And then grip the end of the wire with the round nose pliers at your mark. Make sure that you can just barely feel the end of your wire there, and then turn a loop. So most of the way there. And you'll stop just as you get here, and then switch back over to the flat nose pliers to close this up. You don't want there to be any gaps here. Any gaps are going to catch on stuff. Okay, so that one needs to be adjusted a little bit more. So I'm going to pull this back a little bit more, because ideally what you want is for this loop to sit over top of, oops, sorry, sit over top of this center line here. So again, grab this with your round nose pliers. Check to make sure that you can just barely feel the end of it, and turn a loop. There we go. Flatten it and make sure that it's all closed. And then the next thing you should do is just check to make sure that this is all straight and flat. So from here, what we're going to do is add a little bit of binding wire on here. So this is the half round wire. That's just to lock everything in place. You can use it like this if you're doing a pair of earrings. So for example, I was making a pair of earrings and I used this link there. So it works really well in earrings for that. But if you're going to use it in a chain, then I would recommend putting the binding wire on it just to give it a little bit of extra protection. So for that, you're going to need your half round wire. So cut a piece of half round wire that is 2 inches, 5 centimeters, 2 inches, about 5 centimeters. And again, you will want to have this wire be quite straight, so take the time to straighten it. Trim one end flush. And then set this into your flat nose pliers, and you're going to have to eyeball this a little bit, because what your goal here is to create a little box on the end of your half round wire, and you need to pay attention to which is the curved side and which is the flat side, and it's very obvious when you look at it. So stick this in here, and again, get your thumb in here, press very firmly on the edge of your wire and on your pliers, and make a nice box. And then once you have that, you can angle this a little bit and then hook it on here on one side of your mark. So hold this in place with your fingers so that it stays secure, and then grab hold of the wire with your pliers and bend it. Not quite all the way around, just a little bit more than 90 degrees. Hold on to it, reposition your pliers, push it a little bit more, and then flip this over. Grab down here to keep your bundle nice and flat, and then you're going to need to pull on this a little bit as you lay it down, and then press it into place. Bend it around, flip this over, lay it flat, and press it down. Now, at this point, You can still shift this around a little bit. And what you want to watch for is that the binding wire is perpendicular to what you're working on here. The tendency of binding wire is to go on a bit of an angle like that. So, and if you're not careful, it's not going to look very nice. And once you've done 3 rounds of binding, it is locked into place, and there is no way then to fix your binding if it's gone crooked. So take the time now to make the adjustment. Set this down, bend it around, flip, grab, fold, press, and we're going to do one more. Okay. And there you go. All right, so that gives you 3 rounds of binding on here. You can make more or less. That's entirely up to you. It's designer's choice. And then when you're ready, you can cut that off. Again, you want to have the flat edge of your wire nippers facing the finished work. So this is the finished work here. That way you get a nice flush cut. And then press that down. And then there you have the first link. And you can incorporate that into your chain or use it on its own. So I can go through that again. So we start with this piece here. I'm going to go through it fairly quickly this time. Give me a second here. There we go. All right. So set the pliers at the end of the twisted wire at the mark. Bend it 90 degrees. Flip it over. And bend it 90 degrees. Now in this case, you can see how the wire is not straight. And at this point, if you were to continue at this point, you would be guaranteed to have at least one of these sides be off square. So take a minute and twist them up. Make sure that this is going to sit flat. And then also have a look here, because this, you can see it. You can see it. So this wire here is starting to go off square a little bit. So the way to fix that is to set the pliers down here right at where you've made the bend and make a very small adjustment like that. The sooner you can catch your wire going off square, the better it'll be. All right, so come back in here. Continue making the bend. Come back. You can squeeze it a little bit with your fingers. And then come down here. And then again, you still got to check, right? Check to make sure that it's staying on the square. So it's okay down here, but it's a little bit off here. So again, just need to come back in here and adjust it slightly. Now with when you're working with 2 wires like this, sometimes it's just easier to use your pliers. And use your pliers to make some small adjustments so that the wire stays on the square. All right, there we go. Again, we're going to make sure that you're checking. Next up, set the pliers in here into the pocket. Apply pressure with your finger and bend the wire 90 degrees. And then take it and turn it and reposition your pliers over here right into the corner. Apply pressure again. Bend it 90 degrees. And check to make sure that everything is staying flat. Okay. And then add some pressure here to make sure that this lines up parallel again. Come over here, set your pliers into the pocket, and make an initial bend. But like on this case, you'll notice that I pulled this a little bit, but I'm going to get my fingers back in here as tight as possible. When you make a bend from out here, you will not get a sharp corner, because what happens is that there's a pressure comes in here and it ends up turning into a bit of a curve. So what you can do, you can start out here and make the bend a little bit, but then as soon as you can, get your fingers into the corner and apply pressure at the corner, because that will help you to get sharper bends. Okay. And reposition your pliers. Get your finger against your pliers and your wire and apply lots of pressure there. Again, make adjustments. Check. Make sure that everything is still on the square. And there we go. Okay, awesome. I'm going to just adjust this a little bit more because that's a little bit off. The bottom pocket here was a little bit off. All right, so from here, set your pliers back into the pocket here, but then move them out a little bit. Make a bend, move the pliers out again, make a bend, and then hold on to this really tightly with your fingers to finish this off. And make an adjustment because this went off flat. Okay, set this into the pocket and then move it up. You got to make room for your pliers. And then hold tight and finish making the bend with your finger. And then from here, set this down on your table. And pardon me while I adjust the focus again. There we go. And you're going to cut this off at 1 centimeter. So again, you're lining this up against the outside edge of the link and with the flat edge of the the wire nippers facing your finished work. Measure it and then cut it off. Flip it over, measure it, and cut it off at 1 centimeter. And then switch over to the round nose pliers here. Do that out of the way. Oh, no, sorry. File first. And then set this into the mark. Check. And turn a loop. And then check to make sure that that loop is sitting more or less centered over top of your twisted wire here. All right, so when you've got that, then you can take your flat nose pliers and flatten that out again. Make sure that you close up any gaps. And then you're ready to add your binding. So bring this and set it back down on your ruler. And you'll center it on the twisted wire here, because that was 1 inch. So find your midpoint and mark it with the marker. And there you go. And then cut a piece of half round wire that's 2 inches long. Make sure it's nice and straight. Okay, so that's 2 inches, 5 centimeters. Trim off the end. Check to make sure that you know which side is the flat side and which side is the round side, and it's always the flat side that goes against what you're working on. So set the flat edge of the half round wire into your pliers and use your thumb, make a nice box, apply lots of pressure. Right, so you want this box to be nice and square. Angle the end. Like that. And then hook this onto your finished piece here. Now, something that you will want to watch for is how the pieces are on your existing chain, right? So there's a right side and a wrong side to this. So just pay attention to how you did your first one. So for example, here, I actually did this wrong. Ha! Look at that. All of these other ones, the loops finish on the left-hand side. And when I did the binding on this, I finished them on the right-hand side. Sorry, let me move this down. I can show you. So this is something that you have to pay attention to for consistency. Choose a side and pay attention to where your loops are ending. So I can't actually use this one that I made for the chain that I'm working on here because the loops end on the wrong side and it's not consistent with what I did for the rest of the chain. So I will put this one aside. I'll use that for a pendant or for a pair of earrings. But again, that's just something that you will want to watch for as you're working on this. So this now is my finished side. This is going to be the good side. So when I add the half round wire to this, just got to pay attention and make sure that it's consistent. All right, so stick that on there. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to just, this is twisting a little bit, this link. So I want to make sure that it's actually sitting flat before I do that. All right. Okay, so hook this on here. Grab hold of it with your pliers. Bend it 90 degrees and then a little bit. Move your pliers back a little bit, bend it a little bit more. And then hold on to all of this while you flip it. Set your pliers across the bar here so that the wires all stay flat. You can see how much this still moves around. Until you've actually got this pressed down, it's going to have a tendency to move around. Okay, so fold it down and then press it into place. You don't need to squeeze really hard because if you have a death grip with your pliers, then it's going to mark your wire. You don't want that. You just want to press firmly enough so that it's going to lock in place, but you don't need a death grip. And then I can move this down just a little bit more. And grab down here, fold this over. And what this does is it holds everything flat and consistent so that you don't crush these wires together. Flip this over. Hold down. Now, just check to make sure that these are actually perpendicular. Make a little adjustment. Flip it over. Fold it down. Flip it over. Fold it down. Press it down. Now with this one, this tail here is sticking up a little bit. So I'm going to take my pliers and just move it so that it sits a little bit more flat. Press it down again. And press it down. So then, again, I can trim this tail off. You don't need to leave a long tail, and it's actually better if you don't. The longer your tail is here, the more likely it is to get caught on something. So generally what you can do is cut this tail off so that it covers over about 2 strands of your piece here, and that'll be plenty. So have the flat edge of the pliers, the wire nippers facing the finished work, trim it off, and then press it down. All right, so there we go. There's that link. Now, if you're adding this to your chain, and since I can't use this one, I'm only going to add this one. You can use any kind of connector to add this to your chain. And what I'm going to do is use some 20 gauge jump rings that I made. You can also use S-links. You can use double links. You can use larger links. You can do beaded chains in between, beaded links in betweens. So if you're doing a jump ring like this, then what you will want to do is open it up. And I always use 2 pliers to do this. So open up the jump ring by twisting it open. You always want to twist open like this. You never want to twist open like this, because if you do that, then you lose the shape of the ring. So pay attention to where your ending is here. So flip that on, and now this side, the end is going to be on the other end. Flip that on, and then close that up again. Make sure that everything is nice and tight. And then you have your new link added onto your chain. Now from here, you can make this as long as you want or as short as you want, and then choose whatever finishing you want for this. If you want to put a claw clasp on it or a handmade clasp on it, that's entirely up to you. But as you can see, this makes a really, really lovely, lovely chain. And it's one that you can use in a variety of different ways. So go nuts. Have fun with this project. If you do make this chain, and when you do make this chain, I would love to see what your results were like. So you can, oh, hang on. Oh God, yes, okay. Let me just flip over back here. There we go. All right. So I would love to see the results that you get with this chain. So you can contact me through my website and send me photos through my website at thetowofwire.com. It's hot in here. Oh my God. It's cold outside, but it's hot in here. So I hope you enjoyed that project. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments section below, or you can send them to me through my website at thetowofwire.com. This Open Studio is a regular feature of the Members Studio, which is my paid membership group. But I also am doing regular projects for beginners. I am really happy to help beginners to build their skills, and I have a couple of different projects specifically geared towards beginners. The one is the Getting Started with Wire Jewelry, which gives you all of the background information you need. And then the next one is Wire Jewelry for Beginners, which will take you through a whole series of projects to help you get familiar with your tools, get familiar with working with wire, and get familiar with the top 5 skills that you need to learn in order to have the foundation for all the other projects you're going to do in wire working, regardless of whether you're doing one of my tutorials or somebody else's. So I hope you will check that out. You can find that in the description below this video after I have updated the video. And you can also find it up here on the link to my channel. Or you can visit me at thetowofwire.com, and I would love to see you in the Member Studio or in any of the other live things that I'm doing in the future. So thank you very much for joining me today, and have a great day. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll talk to you again next time. Bye for now.